U.S. policy or strategy, at least, shift on Bashar al-Assad?
It hasn't, Allison, it has not shifted. I'll just remind everyone that for more than 2 years now, we've been talking about how there has been a political process. That's what Secretary Kerry is referring to. The process has been on hold for some time, but there's no question that in order to bring an end to the suffering of the Syrian people, the international community would need to bring both sides to the table together. But Assad has lost legitimacy. The United States government absolutely continues to believe that. We don't see a future for him in Syria.
Jen, you say it has not shifted. However, let me remind you some of the things that were said in 2011, all up until last year. In 2011, President Obama said Assad must go. That's very different than saying we're prepared to negotiate with him.
Allison, Secretary Kerry has said that countless times in recent weeks as well, and continues to believe that.
But
we're not talking about Assad, we're talking about having both sides at the table. You can't have the opposition negotiating with itself. You certainly wouldn't get very far. So our goal continues to be, as does the goal of the international community, bringing both sides together. That's not a process that's ongoing or that exists right now.
It was just last year, Jen, in fact, a year ago this week, that the Obama administration ordered the Syrian government to suspend its diplomatic and consular missions in the United States, requiring all personnel who are not legal U.S. residents to leave the country. Again, quite different than saying we're going to sit down at the same table and negotiate.
Allison, I think people are forgetting that we've been talking about a political solution which would require both sides negotiating for some time now. Now, that's been on hold since both sides and since many countries met in Switzerland over a year and a half ago. It's not a process that's ongoing. We'd love to reboot the process because that's the only way we can see bringing an end to the suffering of the Syrian people.
Jen, what is the plan to get Bashar al-Assad to the table?
Well, I think that's a discussion that Secretary Kerry and others are having with both his Russian counterparts, his counterparts in Gulf countries, and we're trying to determine what the best way is to get representatives of the regime at the same table with representatives of the opposition. It's difficult, as you know. There's a war going on. The opposition is continuing to build strength, but right now we're continuing to have discussions about how we could reignite a process. There isn't a process going on, unfortunately.
It doesn't sound as though Bashar al-Assad wants to even be a part of this process. Just about an hour ago, he gave an interview on Iranian television. He responded to Secretary Kerry's comments about negotiating. And let me read to you what Bashar al-Assad said. Any talk on the future of the Syrian president is for the Syrian people, and all the declarations from outside do not concern us. What's your response?
Well, I think we have to take anything Bashar al-Assad says with a huge hunk of grain of salt here, because he has killed tens of thousands of his own people. I think the international community is not going to stand by and accept his word that he's thinking of the people in his country, and we're going to continue to think of ways to put necessary pressure on. That includes diplomatic ways, that includes training and equipping the Syrian opposition. That is beginning this month. That includes continuing to provide additional assistance, and we're going to stay at it until we bring an end to the suffering of the Syrian people.
250,000 people in the past 4 years have been killed in this conflict in Syria. So what would any bargaining chip be for Bashar al-Assad? If we've taken him having to step down off the table, then where does that leave the U.S.?
Well, first of all, to be clear, nobody sees a future for Assad in Syria, not the United States, not anyone in the international community who's been on the side of the opposition and on the side of the Syrian people. We're talking about how to exert any kind of pressure we can exert. There's obviously military pressure through our train and equip program. There's pressure from the international community, from the United Nations. There's diplomatic pressure. And if he's someone who claims cares about the people in his country, then this is something he should be